We have gotten a stack like this of emails for you in the last couple of weeks, so I've written a couple down and I'll throw them at you from our viewers. This is from Larry in Florida. Tim Fincham crushed you and your world tour idea and then stole it and made it work. Would you like to fight him with one hand tied behind your back?
I'd beat him, so it wouldn't be a fair fight.
So that's a yes.
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't want to fight him. But situations like that, Peter. I mean, I got to be very honest. That hurt me as much as probably '96 U.S. Masters, as much as losing things, because it really put me in a very, very difficult position. And there's a couple of reasons why, and I won't expound on the first one, but it kind of put a division with my friends, because I talked to a few of them before I even put my neck into the news, to speak. And
Give everybody a little bit more of the background for people who aren't familiar that you came up with the idea for the World Tour.
well, it wasn't really my idea. I always suggested that the best way to have a world ranking system is to have a world tour where the players play against each other on a common ground, like the tennis association, where the players are continually playing around the world against the same players. So you get a very, very good barometer of who's the best in different courses, different conditions, but it's the same players every time. So I thought, boy, that would be great in the game of golf, because we really only have it in 4, maybe 5 tournaments, the TPC and the 4 major championships, and that's really not enough, because you want to see it spread across the ground a little bit more, double that, 10. And then I took into consideration that if I was going to play a World Tour event, I still want to support the U.S. Tour. That was my #1 criteria. I said, I do not want to hurt the U.S. Tour. So I'm going to play my 15 tournaments in the U.S. Now, I normally play between 20 and 22 tournaments that time of year per year. So I figured, well, if I'm going to play another 7 tournaments outside the U.S. Tour, why don't they become World Tour events? That's how my idea started off with it. And I got down, I sat with John Montgomery, and we talked about it, and he continued on with it. And I just made a few more suggestions about it. But let me go back to where it really hurt me was the fact that it kind of like alienated me with my friends, and that really killed me, because the propaganda machine went out there because they didn't like it. And I tell you, this is a fact, and I made this public knowledge for the first time since the World Tour started in Australia with an interview kind of like what we're doing here. And during the time, what hurt me the most was I used to get letters from PGA club professionals saying they're going to discontinue carrying Greg Norman Collection clothing because I'm going to destroy the game of golf. I'm going to ruin the PGA Tour because of this World Tour idea. And I used to get these letters sent to me from my office in New York, from the clothing office, and I used to go, well, this is ridiculous. Now they're really starting to hurt you, because now they're going to a position where they shouldn't even go. So you know what I did, Peter? I took it upon myself to call every single one of those club pros. And I said, and this is how I started the conversation started up. I said, you sent this letter to such and such, and I would like you to hear the other side of the story. If you want to cancel your clothing order after you hear my side of the story, fine, but please be judgmental on 2 sides, not just the media side and not just the propaganda. So you know how long that takes to answer. You have a stack of stuff like this. So it took me a long time to make these phone calls, to take the time out of my schedule to do that. I don't know what happened, but it made me feel good. And I called Richie Woodworth at the time, who was president of Greg Norman Collection. I called him up and said, Richie, what was the end result of my making all those phone calls? And he said, most of them continued on with the orders. They didn't cancel them. But the point is, what I'm trying to make is, you get put into a corner. I was backed into a corner, unnecessarily so, and here we are today. It's a great idea. And that's where I'll never forgive how it came down. I really won't, because it hurt me, it hurt my image. And there's one thing I won't do, is hurt the game of golf or try and undermine the PGA Tour or do anything like that. That's one thing I keep very, very high on my list, is the morals and the ethics of the game of golf. And that's where I got hurt, and it's still to this day, as you can tell, sits in my system.
In 1995, when you were voted Player of the Year by your peers on the PGA Tour, did that tell you something that you didn't know about the way the other players felt about you?
Um, I was very pleasantly surprised because I'll be honest again, I'm fairly candid when somebody asks me a question. For many a year, when I always felt as an international player playing in the United States, we were kind of frowned upon. You know, you're coming over here and you're living in the United States and you're playing well in the United States. And I always felt, and I'm not the only one who's an international player. This is a topic of discussion to this day amongst us. And we have a tendency of feeling that. And you think, whoa, man, I pay my taxes here the same as anybody. Just because I don't have a U.S. passport doesn't mean to say that we should have this kind of little bit of friction going on. And I'm not saying it's across the board, but you can feel it. I did feel it back in those days. So you kind of look at it and go, well, I wish that never really happened. I wish that never really existed in us because we're all above that.
When we come back, let's take a look at the golf swing you've decided to use now. Tell us why you're using it. Let's take a look at one of the greatest putting strokes of all time. Maybe we can steal some of your keys, and we'll do that in just a moment with Greg Norris. Your office was nice enough to send up to us a similar huge stack of emails to shark.com, which you'll tell us about later in the show. And I've got one of them here to start this segment. And this is from Janet in Ohio. You've had 3 primary teachers, Charlie Earp, Butch Harmon, and David Ledbetter. Please tell us what your current swing keys are and why you're using the shorter swing that we've seen from you lately.
Well, first of all, the shorter swing came, it was a product because of my shoulder. For 18 months ago, prior to my surgery, for about 2 years leading up to that, I knew I had some shoulder problems. I didn't know exactly what was happening in there, and that was causing my shoulder restriction. And really what was happening, Peter, when I took my backswing here, my shoulder used to pop out of joint and go down and out of the socket. And when on my downswing, if it didn't come back into place, then I was in trouble. So I actually was starting to manufacture my golf swing where I wasn't going so far back. So since the surgery and since Dr. Hawkins has given me a clean bill of health in the last 6-8 weeks, I now have the ability of trying to get a bit more of a fuller turn, put more pressure on the left shoulder. So with the 3 primary teachers I've had, Charlie Earp instilled me the fact to just tee up the ball, hit it as hard as you can, and go find it. Figure out how to hit it straight after you figure out how far to hit it. And then, because Charlie lived in Australia, I didn't have the time and effort to go back there all the time. And Charlie and I used to communicate on the phone and have lessons on the phone for probably close to 10 years of my career. And then I had to find somebody new, so Steve Elkington introduced me to Butch Harmon in Houston one time when I played there. And Butch is a great guy, likable. He and I are still very, very close friends. I like the way his approach to the game. I liked what the mental thought process, like I said at the British Open in '93. He gave me a lot of, he made me feel good going into the last day. So there's a chemistry that was there. Physically, there was a chemistry, and what he told me, I trusted what he said about my golf swing, so you absorb that. And then, we kind of drifted apart, and our friendship stayed great, fortunately. And then David Ledbetter came along, and one thing I said to David, David, I don't want to become analytical, and I don't want to become mechanical. I want to be a field player. I want to get my field part of my swing back again. But then I had the surgery. Most of the time I've been with David. So I haven't really been a free player as of yet. And in the last 2 to 3 weeks is the first time that I've actually started to be free, and I can start to unload my swing a little bit and hit more balls, which is starting to show through in my golf game.
And you've been following doctor's orders.
I've been following doctor's orders to the T. But basically what I try and do in answer to the email question is I try and keep my triangle. My triangle runs from my shoulders down to my grip. And the longer I can maintain that triangle in this rotation here, the more width I'm going to get. The more width you generate, Obviously, the more club head speed you can get at impact. But in maintaining the triangle, what I try to do is I try to point the club directly away from the target when it's parallel to the ground. When I get to there, when I come on my follow-through, I can point the club directly at the target on my follow-through. So this is my thought process, is basically from here, maintain your width and triangle, impact, maintain your width and triangle, and everything else takes care of itself. The rotation starts with more your abs than anything else. If you can rotate your abs, turn your abs into your right side, and then fire your abs at the ball, you're going to maintain a good rotation around your spine.
So that's what Roberto Di Vincenzo meant when he said, I hit the ball with my stomach. He was moving his abs.
Absolutely. And we're starting to see this more and more now. Dr. Hawkins at the Hawkins Stedman Clinic in Vail, we're in a process right now of analyzing the golf swing through electrodes. And I get out there and they stick these things on me all the way, because I was fascinated, and I asked Dr. Hawkins this question. I said, what is the first muscle that fires on the downswing? Good question, right? Because I always thought it might be fire with your legs or pull from the top with your left side or do this or that.
What is it?
Roberto's right. It's your abs. It's amazing what happens when you stand here like this and you rotate. The first thing that keeps you stable is your abs. If you have weak abs, you're going to have a bad back. So anytime you make motion, your abs have got to hold you there and stop you from falling over and up, forward or backwards. So if you maintain a good ab rotation or stomach rotation, turn your belly button away. Like I said, point the club away from the target. Your belly button is going to point away from the target. How many times have we read, turn your belt buckle? Same with your belly button. 2 inches below your belly button is your center of your body, which is your key, your energy level. If you can turn that there, that's going to come back to here and then go there. So Roberto is absolutely right. He's way ahead of his time.
What have you done with your swing to try to get rid of the one shot that's plagued you more than any other, that block shot straight to the right? What causes it, and then what do you do to try to get rid of it? And that's a shot that you seem to hit pretty much only under pressure.
Well, the shot, that comes from my younger days with Charlie, of generating as much width as I could get. And remember, I was saying about the triangle, generate that triangle, but at times when I try and get that width, I get a tendency of going with the club head. And when I go with the club head, my abs aren't doing the work. All I'm doing is just a little lateral hip slide. And from here, you've got to recover very, very well with your hands, or you're going to stick the ground back here. And that's why I had a lot of shoulder problems and back problems, because from here I'd have to come in, make way for the club, or I'd hit the ground 2 feet behind the ball. I'd have to come up like this, and that's why a lot of my swings I finish really high. And nowadays, when I'm swinging really well, you finish around here like Steve Elkington. You finish around there with your belly button pointing straight at the target.
And his isn't a bad golf swing.
Not too bad.
When we come back, let's take a look at one of the best putting strokes that anybody's ever had and one of the most underrated parts of Greg's game in just a moment. Stay with us. And this was the third of 3 birdies in a row when Greg was a couple behind, and now he's one ahead, and he wins the 1997 FedEx St. Jude, much to the chagrin of Dudley Hart, who had just completed play.
Yeah.
One of the things that people probably don't really realize about the beauty of your ability to score well, no matter how you're playing, has been your chipping and your putting. And inside 15 feet for the last 15 years, would you not put yourself in the best 3 putters of the last 15 years in that distance?
Well, being the humble God that I am, I'd say
Yes,
yes.
right. So with that humble and very slow to give me an answer, share your keys with us if you would hit this 8 or 9 foot putt for us. What do you do? What do you think about? What do you see in your mind's eye?
Well, first of all, I'm an apex putter. I pick out a spot on the green. Let's say this is you're telling me it's inside left. I'll pick out a spot somewhere around that's going to be the apex, the high part of my break. And I'll line up on that visually behind the ball. I'll pick that spot out, and I won't take my eye off it. Even when I'm taking a stroke, and when I put my putter down there, I'm not looking at the hole, I'm looking at my spot here. And then the very last thing I do, once I get my club face lined up and look at the spot, and then I look at the back of the hole where I want the ball to hit. Now, if it's a hard breaking putt and I want to die it in there, I don't want to die it into the back of the hole. I want to die it in the front lip of the hole. So I'm using, most golfers, I think, when they putt, they try and get it in the front section. I try to use all the hole. And when I practice, and I practice this with Gregory, I try and get him to practice just putt the ball and let it leave it right on the edge of the hole. Don't hold the putt. Just put that ball on a spot, whether it's 7 o'clock on the hole or whether it's 11 o'clock on the hole, putt to that spot. So you're always using 180 degrees of the cup, not just using the 90 degrees or one quadrant of it. So
Because the front of the hole isn't always the front of the hole.
Exactly right.
Got it.
Exactly. So I always look at the spot. I'm an apex putter. I always try and get you'll probably see me do this a lot. I like to just get my putter to sit flush, and from there I just line it up. And now what I do, Peter, is I try and pull this part of the golf club along with my heel through the ball.
What are you pulling it with?
With my hand, my left hand, I'm just pulling through the ball. David Duval does this better than anybody I've ever seen. He really does. He probably doesn't know he does it, but he does it beautifully, and that's why he's such a great putter, because he has a putting stroke that's back short, not real short, but everything is pulling through at the same time, at a constant pace, at a constant speed. And that's what I've always tried to do. I try and pull the top of the grip along with the heel of the putter, and I try and pull it all the way through. My gosh.
That was good.
And that's all I try to
And
do.
they said you couldn't play under pressure.
Well, I get a little nervous every now and then, but that's the secret. But you see a lot of players, amateurs particularly, hit at the ball. Another thought process that I have is I try and hit through the ball.
Why do you hold your finish, Greg, the way that you do? What feedback does that give you?
What finish is that?
Well, when you finish a putt, you hold
I hold
the
it.
finish.
Yeah. I like to feel like I've stayed down my line. You know, I like to stay in there. The putter's going down the line all the way. And if I can hold that there, I know I've kept it there all the way. If I'm coming up, I've come up through my stroke. And that tells me I didn't make a good stroke.
If the pressure's on, what goes on in your mind's eye? What do you do to fight off the thoughts that are unpleasant and either focus on what you ought to focus on or see in your mind's eye what you ought to see?
I think at the time, in those circumstances, you are so into what you're doing, you really don't think about it. It just becomes natural. If I have to think about thinking about something, then I'm thinking too much, you know? So I've become very much into Tony Navarro is probably the best guy to ask that question, because he, outside my wife, probably knows me better than anybody else.
And for people who don't know, that's his caddy.
My caddy, yeah, because he spends more time with me, so he knows my mannerisms. He can tell in my eye. He said to me the other day, he said, I just know when you're going to make a putt. He said, because I can tell it in your eyes. He said, when I squat down and look at you, he said, I can see your eyes. He said, I know you're going to make it. I don't care about where the putt is or what it's doing. He said, I can just tell. So maybe that's just a point where I just go into a zone so deeply that all I'm concentrating on is make a solid putt, hit the ball solid. I don't even know what I say. I mean, there's a process that happens, I'm sure, but you know, I go through it, but I don't mentally think about it that much.
Ray Floyd has said that when he's over the putt and he's getting ready to make his stroke, he actually sees a kind of a picture of a little train coming by, picking up the ball, going down the track and dropping it in the hole, and he can smell the smoke coming out of the smokestack of the train. What do you see as you're making a stroke, if anything at all?
Well, what I do see, when I do this a lot, is I picture a line coming back 6 inches from the ball and going through 6 inches from the ball. And that line is I've already predetermined because of the apex of my putt.
Sure.
And I'll picture that putter head going back that line and through on that line. And if I maintain that, then I know I'll maintain the right path. Now what happens is with a lot of players, including myself, is when we get these big swinging putts, for example, especially with me on a left or right putt, you have a tendency to look at the hole, and then when you want to come back to the ball, you have a tendency of taking the putter straight back from the ball to the hole instead of down your line where you want it to go. And then you come back, your putter face is aiming left, you're bringing the putter back down the line from ball to hole, so now all of a sudden you're trapped, you're shot, you've got the putter face shot. So You know you're there, so you come over it, so you pull it further left than what you anticipated. That's why I got in the habit of picturing that line. Now, when I line up for a big breaking putt, now I just want to follow that line, not follow the line from the ball to the hole. And that keeps you.
Does that happen to you on a full shot where you've decided, I need to be a little bit conservative here, even though you don't like that word and that thought on the golf course, and then you look up and see the pin and you end up taking dead aim at the pin as opposed to the quadrant you had in mind? You know that one?
Very much so. It's very difficult to say, take the pin out of your mind. Because in situations when you're playing well, a caddy can give you a half yardage, like Greg, it's 143.5 yards over the bunker. Because when you're really playing well, you feel like you're that good, where you can put it within 1.5 feet, 2 feet of where you want the ball to land. And so when you look up, and even when you play a conservative play, you go, look at that flag, and I'm aiming left, and I say, okay, I'm just going to cut it in there a little bit more. So you do it. I mean, it's very difficult to shut out a golf flag. I mean, the way I focus on a golf shot, my pre-shot routine is like shooting a rifle or throwing something. I pick out the smallest spot. I don't look at the flag, I don't look at the fairway, I don't look at a bunker. I'm on the tee shot, I'll look at a rock on a mountain 20 miles away as long as I can see that rock, or the smallest possible pinpoint thing that I can see. I focus on that and I say, I want my club head to go down that target line. And if I do that, then it doesn't matter if there's water there, bunkers there, or anything. I'm just focusing on that one specific thing to get the ball on that line, and everything else will take care of itself.
When we come back, we'll take a number of calls from our viewers. We'll spend some time taking those from you, and Greg will answer all of your questions. So please pick up the phone and call us here now on Golf Talk Live. We'll be right back.